Picture this. You're standing at a fence. On the other side of that fence is the answer to every financial problem you'll ever have. You could pay off your house, set up your kids, walk away from every job you'll ever hate. And it's right there, maybe 40 feet below the surface, possibly less. But you can't touch it. Not because of security, not because of some ruthless billionaire blocking your path. Because of a mid-level bureaucrat in a regional Welsh council office who keeps sending you the same politely worded letter saying no. James Howells has been here, metaphorically speaking, for over a decade now. He knows exactly what's buried in that landfill. He's done the math 1,000 times, and every time the number changes, it gets bigger, more obscene, more maddening. His hard drive is in there, a small, unremarkable 2.5-inch laptop hard drive, the kind you could hold in the palm of your hand. And on that drive are the private keys to 7,500 Bitcoin. At Bitcoin's all-time high, that drive was worth somewhere north of $500 million. Let that settle in for a second. $500 million. Buried in a landfill in Newport, Wales. And the man who put it there has to drive past that landfill almost every single day. This isn't just a story about money. It's a story about a single moment of mundane, perfectly ordinary human carelessness, the kind we've all committed 100 times, that happened to detonate at the exact intersection of technological history and personal fortune. It's the most expensive accident of all time, and it's nowhere near over. It's 2009. The world is crawling out of a financial crisis. Banks have just blown up the global economy and received trillion-dollar bailouts for the trouble. Most people are broke, skeptical, and tired. And somewhere in a bedroom in Newport, Wales, an IT guy named James Howells stumbles across something called Bitcoin. At this point, Bitcoin was a science experiment dressed up as a currency. The community was basically a small forum of cryptographers, libertarian nerds, and programmers who thought it was a cool technical puzzle. No exchange rates, no mainstream coverage, no price, really. Just people trading coins back and forth like they were handing each other Monopoly money. The famous Bitcoin pizza incident, where a programmer paid 10,000 Bitcoin for 2 Papa John's pizzas, hadn't even happened yet. That was 2010. The price in those early months was essentially zero. Fractions of a penny. Less than fractions. It was a hobby. James started mining. Back then, you didn't need a server farm or half the electrical output of a small country. You just ran the software on whatever laptop you had sitting around. His machine crunched the numbers, and the coins came. He mined roughly 7,500 Bitcoin, just under 8,000 coins. It cost him nothing but electricity and some background processing power on a computer he was already using for other things. Then he did what virtually everyone in that early community did. He got bored of it. He saved the private keys, the only code that unlocks and moves those coins, onto a small hard drive, dropped it in a drawer, moved on with his life. Got a new laptop, new projects, new job. Bitcoin faded into background noise. For 4 years, those coins just sat there, dormant, waiting, completely inert, like a lottery ticket stuffed behind a radiator in a house you've already moved out of. It's 2013, spring cleaning. James is clearing out his home office, the kind of deep sort that produces 3 bin bags of cables that definitely don't connect to anything you still own. Old drives, old phones, old tech archaeology. On the desk, 2 hard drives, both the same brand, both 2.5-inch laptop drives, both completely identical to anyone who isn't looking closely enough. One drive is blank, wiped, empty. It has nothing on it worth keeping. That one belongs in the bin. The other drive holds 7,500 Bitcoin. he picks up the wrong one.
He didn't know in that moment. That's the part that's almost impossible to process. There was no hesitation, no warning sign, no gut feeling screaming at him to double check. It was just a Tuesday morning decision. A 1-second action that cost him $500 million. He drove to the Newport City Council landfill site at Docks Way, tossed the bag, drove home, made lunch, probably. The drive went into the general waste. It got compacted, covered, rained on, buried under weeks, then months, then years of additional garbage. By the time James Howells realized what had happened, that drive was under several meters of heavily compressed landfill material, with 500,000 tons of rubbish pressing down on top of it. And here's the thing about landfills. They're not storage facilities. Nothing is labeled. Nothing is retrievable. They're not designed for recovery. They're designed for disposal. Permanent, organized, government-regulated disposal. The drive was gone. He just didn't know it yet.
Late 2013, Bitcoin crosses $1,000 per coin. For most people, it's a news curiosity, a weird internet story. For James Howells, it's something else entirely. He does the math. $7.5 million in a garbage dump that he put there himself 8 months ago. There's a specific kind of horror that doesn't announce itself loudly. It doesn't arrive with sirens. It arrives quietly, at a kitchen table, in the middle of an afternoon. A slow dawning that rewires everything you thought you knew about your life's trajectory. This was that moment.
He went public with the story almost immediately, not because he wanted attention, but because he thought, maybe naively at first, that if people knew, the council might just let him look. The story went global. It hit Reddit, tech news, mainstream newspapers. People couldn't stop reading it. It had everything. Bitcoin mania, a catastrophic blunder, and this sympathetic guy in Wales who'd thrown away a small fortune without knowing it. But the laugh or cry headlines came with a dark side, because every time Bitcoin moved, James had to relive it. Every price spike was another personal gut punch. When Bitcoin hit $10,000, his drive was worth $75 million. When it hit $69,000, $500 million. Imagine watching a stock you used to own hit an all-time high, every day, for years, knowing you could have held. Knowing you held it longer than almost anyone. 4 years of perfect accidental patience, and then you threw it away 8 months before the first real wave of mainstream money arrived. That's not just bad luck. That's a specific, targeted, personalized cruelty that the universe reserved especially for James Howells. And so he made a decision. He wasn't going to accept it. He was going to fight.
Most people, confronted with a closed door, knock once and walk away. James Howells has been knocking on the same door for over a decade, and it's less a knock these days and more a sustained battering ram. His plan, which he's refined and expanded and grown more serious about with every passing year, is not the plan of a man in denial. It's actually, and this is the part that surprises people, a serious, financially backed, technically sophisticated operation.
He secured backing from a hedge fund. Real money. Serious investors who looked at a $500 million target buried in a manageable landfill and did the math on risk versus reward and decided the math worked. The fund would finance the entire operation in exchange for a cut of the recovered Bitcoin. And James made Newport City Council an offer they couldn't rationally refuse. He would give the city 25% of whatever was recovered. That's $100 and some odd million, hypothetically, flowing directly into Newport's public coffers. Schools, roads, infrastructure. Just for saying yes.
The council said no, has said no repeatedly and consistently for years.
Their reasoning isn't crazy on paper. The landfill is a regulated site under UK environmental law. Digging it up risks releasing toxins, methane, contaminated water into the local environment. The liability exposure is enormous, and there's no guarantee the drive, even if found, would still be functional after a decade buried under industrial waste. All of that is true, and James knows all of that is true, which is why the technology he's proposing keeps escalating.
We're talking about AI-powered robotic dogs from Boston Dynamics, spot units that can navigate uneven terrain, running pattern recognition software to scan for the electromagnetic signature of a specific hard drive casing. We're talking about ground-penetrating radar, industrial X-ray scanners. He's proposed a controlled section excavation, not a chaotic dig, but a methodical, GPS-mapped, layer-by-layer operation that contains and manages the environmental impact. He's even mapped the approximate section of the landfill where the drive should be, based on the date of disposal and the council's own waste management records.
This isn't a treasure hunter with a metal detector and a prayer. This is an operation that, in a different context, say an archaeological dig or a military recovery mission, would be completely standard. The technology exists, the funding exists, the plan exists. The council keeps saying no. In 2023, they issued a statement calling the whole thing not in the best interests of residents and explicitly ruled out any future excavation. Not this year, not ever.
And here's the most maddening part. James has alleged, and the council denies this, that a separate private arrangement was proposed behind closed doors, that certain council representatives were interested in a deal that would benefit them personally, not the city. Whether that's true or not, we can't verify, but it tells you everything about how corrosive this situation has become. That it's now a story not just about a lost drive, but about corruption allegations, legal threats, and a decade of institutional stonewalling. The war is ongoing, and it is costing James far more than money.
Here's something that doesn't make the headlines. James Howells has talked openly about what this has done to his life. Not the money, the obsession, the inability to walk away. Because here's the thing about having a specific, recoverable fortune sitting in a specific, identifiable location. It doesn't let you forget it. It doesn't fade. It doesn't become abstract. It's right there. You can drive to it. You can look at it. Relationships have suffered. That's not a dramatic claim. It's just arithmetic. When your mind is perpetually running one calculation, how do I get that drive? There isn't much left over for anything else. Every major Bitcoin bull run becomes a crisis. Every council election is scrutinized for whether the new members might be more favorable. Every advance in robotic or scanning technology gets run through the same filter. Could this help me get my drive? That's not a life, that's a siege. And James is both the attacker and the one besieged. There's a philosophical dimension to this that keeps nagging at you the longer you sit with it. Bitcoin was invented as a system that exists entirely outside the physical world. No banks, no buildings, no government vaults, pure mathematics, pure code. The whole point was that it couldn't be lost, seized, or destroyed, because it lived in the abstract realm of cryptography, not in the physical realm of things that rust and rot and get thrown away. And James Howells found the single most human way to break that promise. He wrote the keys down, metaphorically speaking, on a piece of paper, and he threw the paper away. The coins haven't moved. They're still in the blockchain. Every transaction ever recorded is still there, perfectly preserved, mathematically intact, accessible to anyone who holds those private keys. The Bitcoin itself isn't lost. It's perfectly safe in an indestructible digital ledger. The key is what's lost. One tiny physical object, the bridge between the digital and the real. And without that bridge, $500 million might as well be written in a language no one alive can read.
As of right now,
Newport City Council's position hasn't changed. James Howells' determination hasn't changed. The Bitcoin is still there, in the blockchain. The drive is still there, in the landfill. The standoff continues. And this is where it gets genuinely interesting. Not as a cautionary tale about backing up your data, though, yes, absolutely, back up your data, but as a question about what we actually value and who gets to decide when something is lost.
Because here's the question that's been keeping me up at night. Is a city council really empowered to permanently bury $500 million of someone else's wealth because they're worried about the paperwork? Is environmental law, important as it is, really a reasonable barrier when the potential upside is 9 figures going into public infrastructure? Or is James Howells the author of his own story here? A man who made a careless mistake and has spent 11 years refusing to accept the consequences, gradually consumed by the kind of obsession that only survives because the object of obsession is always visible, always present, always just out of reach. I genuinely don't know the answer. I'm not sure there is one.
What I do know is this. Somewhere under several meters of compacted Welsh rubbish, a hard drive is sitting in the dark. It has no idea how famous it's become. It has no idea it's the subject of international news coverage, legal battles, hedge fund negotiations, and one man's complete psychological undoing. It's just sitting there, waiting.
In the end, this isn't just about a lost hard drive. It's about human stubbornness clashing with reality. Thanks for watching Wealth Persona. If this tragedy made you rethink what wealth and control actually mean, then it did its job. Hit subscribe for the next story. The world is full of secrets, and you need to know them.